All right, Nick, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars overall had a really good draft. I think they made a lot of solid selections, but there was one later round pick that really out to us as a possible steal of the draft by the Jaguars. They scooped up a really good player, and we're going to get to that story here in just a moment.
Yeah, Miles, I agree with you 100%. Heck of a move by Jacksonville picking up this guy who we think could be a real big time stud for him. But before we get to that, Jaguars fans, obviously the draft has wrapped up. We've all know who the Jaguars have added to their roster. And that's why we want to ask you guys to answer in the comment section below, which pick do you think the Jaguars made was the best? The one player that the Jaguars picked up that you think will have a huge impact for this team going forward? Let us know in the comment section below. And as always, stick around and stay tuned to the end of today's video to hear a word from our partner of today's video, and that is Neuro. Right, Miles, what you got? What's going on, Jacksonville?
All right, Nick. I think everyone was wondering at the start of day two, maybe the end of day two, why exactly one of the top safeties in the draft, Antonio Johnson, kept slipping and slipping. But much to the chagrin of, we can all say this was the reason, that was the reason. It doesn't matter because he slid all the way to the 5th round, selection number 162 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they got a steal of a safety all the way in the 5th round. I'll bring up the article here, Nick. It says Antonio Johnson, a safety from Texas A&M University, on Saturday was selected by the Jaguars in the 5th round of the 2023 NFL Draft. Johnson, 6'2", 198 pounds, pretty good size, pretty good weight. Played 3 seasons at Texas A&M, registering 164 career tackles with 96 solo tackles. He registered 14 tackles for loss, an interception, and 7 passes defended in college. So, Nick, I think this guy seems like he played a ton of snaps at Texas A&M, an SEC school, against the best competition. He was very productive in college. He seemed to be a very strong player. He's got good size. He seems like he has a lot of burst, a lot of ability. He's a big guy, thumper, maybe could play in the box a little bit. But nonetheless, he slid all the way, and the Jaguars capitalized on this slide and was able to pick him up for a bargain in the 5th round. What do you think about this selection of Antonio Johnson to the Jaguars?
Yeah, he's one of these classic guys where his film and his gameplay at the college level was really good. He was all SEC his senior year, despite missing 3 games to a relatively minor injury. So, this guy can play football, 3-year starter, like you alluded to. One of the issues with him is his combine wasn't spectacular. I think he only got like 8 reps on the bench press. And, his 40 was 4.5 something, which isn't terrible, but it wasn't great. And he does play safety, right? We know it's sort of an undervalued position in the draft, the way it's been the past few years. Not necessarily the right thing that's been undervalued, but that's just how it happens. Now, that being said, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars picked up a real special kind of player here, because when I look at him and I look at the Jaguars team as a whole, and really any team has to go through this, every team's going to have strengths and every team has to have weaknesses, right? Just with the salary cap, you're just constrained on how you can build your team. The Jacksonville Jaguars, rightly so, have focused primarily on the front 7 defensive line. We saw that last year in the draft, and giving Trevor Lawrence all the tools and all the weapons he needs to be successful. Now, that means that the other positions, like the secondary, are going to be a little weaker just because you're not allocating the resources to it. Now, when you are allocating resources to that position group, you want guys who are playmakers, because you're not going to have the most talented, you're not going to have the deepest group, because you focus on other areas. So when you go out and get guys in that position, you want guys who are versatile, and that's who this guy is to a tail. Johnson can line up anywhere. He can be an in-the-box guy, can be a nickel linebacker, can be a true safety. He can do everything and did everything at the college level. And you want a guy who's a playmaker, and that's what this guy can do. He can blitz and get after the quarterback and sack the quarterback. He can stuff run. He can come up and tackle, come up and hit you guys, come up and play zone, get down in the box and be aggressive. He can also cover deep. He is a nose for the football, forced a bunch of turnovers last season. I mean, this guy's an absolute playmaker. And when you're looking at a position, or a position group, I should say, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the secondary area where you haven't had as much capital as you've allocated to other groups, like I said, you need to put playmakers in spots because you need to make up for that lack of talent. And I really think they got one here in Antonio Johnson. So not only is it a steal in terms of value, getting a guy who a lot of people pegged in the 2nd round, in the 5th round, which is incredible value, they also got a guy who can fit exactly what they need from a roster building perspective as well. Great job by the Jaguars here with this pick.
Yeah, Nick, and I think 2 things you said are really important. One is you talk about his versatility, and there's a lot of safeties being used in that way, but it also covers a lot of needs for Jacksonville. First of all, Rayshon Jenkins, the second safety for Jacksonville beside Andre Sisco, hasn't necessarily been out of this world, so he could fill in there. The linebacker they took last year, Devin Lloyd, was a kind of a liability in coverage in last year, so he could fit in there in certain roles. And then the slot corner as well, and Herndon hasn't been the best as well. So he could fit in a number of roles on this defense, as you said. And I think the second thing that we talk about a lot and that people kind of look into way too much. Like you said, lack of reps on bench press at the combine, stuff like that. But we go all the way back to Tyrann Mathieu, who got like what 2 reps on the bench
Yeah.
press coming out of LSU. I think people put way too much stock in that and way less stock into how good of a football player he was. And Jacksonville seems to have gotten a really good football player.
And again, he was playing against top flight competition in the SEC too, right? It's not like he was all conference in the Mountain West, not to say anything bad about the Mountain West, but he was an all SEC safety, going up against the Brian Branches out of Alabama, some big name, big time prospects. And he beat them out or was right up there with them with a lot of the recognition and things like that. So this guy can legitimately play football. He can do a lot of different things. And I agree with you 100%, Miles. I think this guy's going to be a big time impact player for Jacksonville day one. All right, Miles, we would like to give a special thanks to our partner today's video, Neuro.
That's right, Nick. And I want you to go with me on a journey really fast. I want you to imagine this. It's 4th and goal in the big game, Nick. Your team is relying on you to make the big time game winning play. I know you've been in this situation before, Nick. The stadium is roaring. The clock is ticking. The game is on the line. But if only in that moment you were able to have some Neuro Gum. Neuro Gum will help you stay concentrated, and it gives you a burst of energy without a nasty crash.
That's right, Miles. Neuro has thoughtfully curated ingredients and does endless lab testing, which means that you can reach the right state of mind safely and consistently. That's the most important part. It gives you a clean burst of energy and focus without the jitters of coffee or any of those other energy drinks.
That's right, Nick. And if you click our sponsor link in the description below, you can enjoy energy, calm, and focus whenever you need it.